story behind Money Peach is that in the naive world of his, when he was getting ready to like make it a thing, and he was like, I don't know what a blog is, and he was going to start a website. He's like, goes on to look for a domain name. He's like, yeah, I'm going to talk about money. Money.com. And he's like, money.com isn't available. I'm like, yeah. Pretty sure that got swooped up a long time ago. You're listening to the Bar and Restaurant Podcast, where hospitality lovers come to listen and learn with expert David Delorenzo. Now here's your host, the DELO.
Hey, it's the DELO here, and on today's podcast we have Andrea Robinson. Andrea Robinson was on Fox News 10 for 14 years as a morning host, and today I'm bringing her story about how she got started and how her career went and all the different types of fun things that she got to do while she was on the news. We talk about her segment of Taste of the Town and how she got to experience a lot of different restaurants and restaurateurs. We talk about her Zen attitude, and we talk about what she's doing now as far as her YouTube channel that she has, but more importantly, the You Do You journal. And I'm excited to have you all listen about that. She is an amazing, inspirational woman that just keeps on trucking, and I was really, really happy to have her on. So without further ado, we are going to launch into this podcast, and I hope you all enjoy. Cool. So let's start. So where are you from? Where were you born?
Okay, born and raised in Arizona.
Yes.
Phoenix, lived in Glendale, went to, grade school, high school, went to ASU, and I never left. I stayed here. Yeah.
Well, that's so...
And most of my family, they aren't natives, but most of them have been here forever and ever.
Okay.
So, yeah, our roots are here for sure.
Wow. So I'm a native as well, born at Scottsdale Memorial.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm the first Italian to ever be born in Arizona. I'm totally kidding.
I was like, whoa. Now maybe we need to do the podcast about you. I was born at St. Joe's, so there you go.
So not too far. And so so ASU, and that's
went
really
to ASU, cool. And again, my family is all here and have been, so I just didn't have the opportunity or really the want to leave unless there was really something worthwhile to leave.
And so you're still here and
still
probably staying here. And
I mean, my family, I'm raising here. We have two kids, a 6 and an 8-year-old. My husband's a native as well.
Okay.
And, we met right before he started at ASU. And so we've, been together a really long time.
Now, did you meet at ASU?
We met. I was going into my sophomore year at ASU, and he was starting his freshman year. He likes to say,
right.
I'm older, of course.
Well,
and
I do the same
young
thing.
And great. And I said,
well,
we're all going to be old together, so.
Yeah, right? I mean, what is that, like 6 months or
exactly,
something? Yeah,
exactly.
That's exactly the same as Kim
we
and I.
went to ASU together and
cool.
have just been doing life since then together.
Have you been back to ASU since you went to school there?
I have a few times. In fact, just recently, my husband had a speaking thing with some marketing students at the W.P. Carey School of Business. Yeah. So I went with him, and I was like, oh my gosh. First of all, it looked completely different. And second of all, it would be awesome to be a college kid now because it is like a resort there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All the food choices are
different.
different.
No wonder why they're all broke.
Yeah.
And living in debt.
Or their parents are broke.
Or their parents are broke, yeah. Or their parents really loved them and saved a lot of money for them growing up, and they're paying cash for it.
Completely. Yeah. So what was it? ASU took your money for what degree?
So I got a degree in communications, and at the time there was still the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, and I was in the Hugh Downs School of Human Communication. So that doesn't even exist any longer. And I got a degree in relationship communication, which really means nothing to anybody. But my senior year, spring semester, I had to do an internship, and it was totally up to us where we wanted to do it, what we wanted to do. And I definitely always had an interest in TV news. I remember from way back when I used to do the morning announcements on TV, at school. Yeah. I would make little TV segments at home and put on little shows. So looking back, I always had sort of a love for it.
Yeah.
And so I did this internship, and it was a typical internship. You were paid nothing. You just went to learn,
Right.
to see what it was all about. And at the time, the traffic reporter was leaving. And these were the days of Ron, Rick, and Alona, if you remember.
I do, yeah.
At Channel 10. And they were wonderful to me, like so great. And they each took me aside and said, you should audition for that. And this was, they wanted somebody to audition for it, which
Oh,
is a little
wow.
bit different than how you typically go about getting a TV job. So I will say, to appease them, was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll try. But it just didn't really interest me.
Yeah.
And I just was maybe more scared. That's probably why it didn't interest me. And I just kind of thought, me? Like, hello, I'm 19 years old. Like, this is not going anywhere. And so I auditioned for it. And how I got this job, I have no idea.
That's
'Cause I was
amazing.
terrible. I was terrible. And so I got the job. It was 3 hours a day starting out. And I remember too, when I was interning, I remember somebody there that worked there in a different department told me, don't expect this to like go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't happen. And so in a way I was like, okay, well, that's kind of like real advice. But also, whenever somebody says, like, don't expect this, or this might not happen, or this won't, I'm like, oh, really? Okay, well, let me just see. I think I could maybe make something happen.
Yeah.
I like when someone
You
tells
like
me
the
I
challenge.
can't. I like when someone says, you can't do that. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. Well, maybe. Watch me. So I started, and I was horrible. I was green as can be, and I started, again, it was 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I had a full-time job on top of that because I made $10 an hour.
What was the job that you were doing also?
I was doing community relations for Hospice of Arizona, actually, at the time.
Wow.
So I was working with doctors and doctors' offices and things like that, and educating the community on hospice and the benefits of utilizing it with your patients. So that was a completely and mind
different.
you, I had family in that business, so I knew about hospice from a very young age. I lived that life with my family because they all worked in that realm. So it's totally two different things. But one thing led to another, and after doing this job for 3 hours a day plus the full-time job, they came to me and offered me a full-time position at the station.
Okay.
And so I always remember telling myself, I never wanted to look back and say, wonder if I would have taken that job, what life would look like or what would have happened. So I thought, okay, well, if this is not good and it doesn't turn into anything, then I'll just quit. I just won't do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Or I'll just say, okay, chalk it up as an experience and move on. And I took the full-time position, and that was, I started in 2004 as the traffic reporter, and then the full-time position just sort of opened up more opportunities and doors, and I
Right.
ended up staying there up until September of last year.
Yeah.
So, and throughout that time, I learned how to do everything. I got to do awesome segments and meet amazing people.
Yeah.
I think that's the best part of that job, is just the people that you get to meet along the way, and the coworkers. Always, I will say, I miss them the most. But I never would have thought that a job making $10 an hour, 3 hours a day would have turned into a career for almost 15 years.
Well, again, another similarity. So when I went to ASU, I got an internship with Warner Brothers.
Okay.
So then I worked in the music business.
Yeah.
And you talk about meeting cool people and doing all that. And at first you're kind of like, wow, a little. And then you realize, like, everybody pays their bills the same. They all
Totally.
smell the same. You know what I'm saying? They all eat
Yep.
food through their mouth. It's like, not a big deal.
Yes.
But it's kind of cool because you'll always have those memories and you'll have experiences that a
Yeah.
lot of other people don't get to have.
I know, and the people that you get to meet, and just the ability to kind of use your brain in weird ways. We would go from doing a cooking segment to then doing a segment on, politics, and having a politician sitting next to you. And it was just such a different way to think for 5.5 hours a day. And it really just, you have to be a people person to be in that business, because you have to be willing to meet all the people and always put on a happy face and always serve your audience and your community first. But it taught me so many things about myself and just people in general.
Yeah, well, it's amazing to follow you and to get to know you, a little bit over the years. Obviously, you've known my wife, and she's done many segments, and I think I did like 1 or 2 segments with you too. But, life just goes by so fast, and you don't really get to know a person on a personal level other than what you read and may interpret through, postings and online line and that sort of thing. So let's get into how your husband did an on-air proposal.
Yeah.
I think that was cool when I had read about it. How were you feeling that day? Did you have any idea?
No idea. And I hate surprises. I was always like the person that would go out and buy Christmas gifts for everyone and then, tell them what they were getting. Because I just I couldn't hide the excitement. And I hated surprises. I hated being surprised because I like to control all the things, which that's a whole different topic that I'm learning to not control all the things. So I had no idea. But literally, I grew up on TV. Like I started when I was 21 years old and I got proposed to, got married, had babies, all of that on TV. So when he had decided he wanted to do that, part of me, I was so shocked because I was like, I didn't think he could think of something like that. You know,
right.
I didn't think he had it in him.
Right.
And so he had kind of conspired with our producers that he wanted to do that. And of course they, like anything good for TV, they're like, sure.
Yeah.
What do you want to come today?
This is great for TV.
Yeah. So he planned it. I really did have no idea. And so that day I was doing stories. I was reading a couple stories about celebrities getting married and two over the week. I think it was like, I don't even remember the celebrities now. But anyway, I'm reading and he walks out from behind the studio or behind the set. And I'm just shocked. Like, just shocked.
Right.
And I look back at that video, I'm like, oh my gosh. One, we look like we're babies. And two, I was just something that I can't even put into words because it was such a wonderful day. It was such a special day, but it was a day I totally did not expect.
And you all had been obviously dating for a while, and you knew it was coming, just not...
7 years it took him. So and he always says, well, it took 7 years. I had to make sure I saw all the crazy parts of you. I wanted to make sure I wasn't surprised that if we got married, some weird version of you would come out that would freak me out. And, I said, I get it. You dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's before you make it official.
I love that. You know what, Chris? Congratulations on that. And note to my wife, it was only 3 years, okay?
Yeah. See, so you could have had 7. 7 felt like an eternity. But we had dated a long, long time before that ever happened.
That's awesome. Well, tell the audience a little bit about Chris and Chris Peach is his name.
Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to go Andrea Peach or
So Peach is a nickname.
Okay.
And it was his nickname growing up, and it's just stuck.
It's just stuck.
It's just stuck.
So, like the DELO stuck with me.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So everyone that knows him, it's just Peach. And so he, again, born and raised, went to ASU. He wrestled at ASU. And then right after that, he got hired on the fire department. He, all through his time at ASU, was studying. He was getting a medical engineering degree.
Okay.
Like, again, I always say he's like a better human. He's way smarter than me. And he wanted to be a doctor. And then he was like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do that. So he had a coach who became a mentor, who just became a lifelong friend growing up, who was a Phoenix Fire captain.
Okay.
And he coached him in football all through really growing up. And so he really looked up to him and just thought, maybe I want to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
And so he worked really hard and he got hired shortly after ASU, and he's still a firefighter now.
Yeah.
And then like every firefighter, they always have something else they do.
Right.
And his something else came because of a struggle of ours and sort of a need.
Yeah.
He runs a online website /blog/ money coaching business called The Money Peach. And the story behind Money Peach is that in the naive world of his, when he was getting ready to make it a thing, and he was like, I don't know what a blog is, and he was going to start a website. He's like, goes on to look for a domain name. He's like, I'm going to talk about money.com. And he's like, money.com isn't available. Like, pretty sure that got swooped up a long time ago. So he's like, Peach. Everyone calls me Peach. Money Peach was born.
I love it.
But Money Peach was born because back in 2011, we lived way above our means. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just like 1 year of doing that. We just really were never taught how to manage money and become good stewards of our money. And so we, like a lot of people in America, because there's a debt problem for a reason. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why most people can't write $1,000 check at the drop of a hat. We lived well above our means. We both had great jobs and decent income, but we spent like we had triple that or quadruple that.
Yeah.
And we thought we deserved to have brand new cars.
Oh,
we
of course.
deserved to have a
Yeah.
big house. And we deserve to have the new dress. If it costs $200, I deserve it. I get up early. And so we lived like that. And we were $52,000 in debt when we had a moment of me with a baby at the
Yeah.
grocery store, and my cards just kept getting declined.
Oh,
and
man.
I was on TV, so people started to know me, and so that was embarrassing. And
Yeah.
of course I came home pissed off at him because I'm going to blame him first. Right. So that opened up the door to our debt-free journey. And through that, you know, we completely scaled our lifestyle. We completely turned things upside down. He started, I mean, in college, he had a pool route, so he would clean pools
Yeah.
as college income. So he's like, well, I know I can do that, and I can work overtime too.
Yeah.
So here we are. I'm driving him around neighborhoods. We're putting, when, you know, we would go on Google Earth to
Yeah.
see where pools were in the back yards of people's homes, and then we would go to their houses.
Brilliant.
And he would knock on their door, and if they answered, he would kind of give them a spiel. And here I am driving him around with the baby in the back. Carter, our son, was just a baby. And so that helped to bring in some income to start paying off the debt. So we worked really, really hard, paid off that debt in about 7 months. And then we were like, we will never go back to living like that. And that was just the start of it. I mean, just getting out of debt is the start of it. And then there, you know, we started to get really clear on what we wanted our life to look like one day. And we did not want money to be the fight, the cause of
Right.
everything awful in our life, which it is to so many people.
Oh, yeah.
And so we made that commitment, and it was not an easy road. I hate making it, I'm kind of speeding up the story, but I hate making it sound like I was on board to get out of debt and say no to things. Like I was the worst. I felt like it was him pointing fingers at me, you know, you
Yeah.
spent too much at Target and this and that, but it wasn't. It was, once we both got super self-aware, we were able to get on a plan together, and we became this team. And when we realized we're working at the same thing here. We're
Yeah,
the team.
we're a team.
And and so that's how Money Peach really was born out of that, because, you know, we became the weird friends that were like, no to vacations, and, you know, we weren't the like, oh yeah, Sunday fun day, let's go,
Right.
expensive dinners like we used to be.
Let's go buy bottles at the club.
Yeah, I'm still driving my 2013 Kia with 165,000 miles on it. We drive new old cars.
That's awesome.
And so
Yeah.
we're gonna live like that forever. But people started asking, well, what are you doing? And so we started, I mean, we would sit at our kitchen table at night with friends that would come over, and we would show them what we were doing and how we were doing it. So we knew there was a need.
Yeah.
And there was a need for somebody to say it in a very basic way. We didn't need over your head
Right.
terminology, like basic budgeting. I mean, it's 5th grade math, but we're never taught this.
No.
It's like the one thing that everybody should be taught how to, and a lot of people aren't.
It's creating a new habit.
And you know how long that takes.
It takes
and it's consistent.
27 days by some people's standards, but yeah.
And then it's consistency, because
Correct.
just like with anything, like you can go on a 30-day challenge to do whatever,
Yeah.
but if you go back to eating crap, then you're going to feel like crap and gain weight again. If you go back to using your credit cards in a, way
Yeah.
that would harm your goal of getting out of debt, then you're never going to get to the goal.
Right.
So that's where really Money Peach has
The
become.
fact that you were in debt and you got to see that personally and understand it and feel the pain
Yes.
and, be embarrassed at the check stand and all that stuff together, there was a reason for that.
And looking back, like
Yeah.
it's sometimes you have to get far away from the time
Yeah.
to see the clarity of that and the reason why you went through that. And so now I see it, and
Yeah.
I see that there was a bigger purpose for all of that. And hindsight's always 2020. Like we wish would have known this when we were, 18 years old.
Of course.
But it's just the way it happened to be.
Well, we're all going to live longer
Yes.
because we're eating good
Yeah.
and we're being organic
Yeah.
and we're not stressed about money. So instead of being 80, we're going to be 130. So
Yeah.
therefore, that's okay.
It's okay.
No, that's great, and I would love to talk to him someday, just on the basis that I think a lot of my listening audience, in the hospitality business especially, you've got young restaurant owners, you've got young chefs, you've got people that are just starting that are making mad tips, and they're
Yeah.
going and they're blowing it on either bottle service or just ridiculous cars or the $30,000 millionaire,
Of
that
course.
sort of thing.
Yeah, we
And-
were there. We were
Yeah.
those people.
So that would be a really cool talk with him if he's up for it. We
He
can
would
certainly talk about
absolutely.
that. Let's talk about, we talked about a little bit of time of your news, and I don't want to dredge too much on that because I know it's, your past. I know you loved it. I know it was fun. But let's talk about what your day was like then, compared to what it's like now, what some of your favorite segments were, and then let's get into Taste of the Town.
Yeah. So when I started there, I've only known the morning shift.
Yeah.
So our job is to wake up the state of Arizona, like the people that watch us. So we have to get up really early. So I would get up at 2:30 in the morning, and I was in the car by 3:30 to the station. By 4, we would start. When I very, very first began, the show started at 5, and then as time went on, we added an hour to the show and then an extra hour. So the better half of my time there, I would get in at 4, and the show would go till 10.
Wow.
The show started at 4:30 till 10. And on paper, you're like, oh, okay, you're off at 10, but you're not, because then, we have to have a planning meeting for the next day. And we as a team collectively would come up with story ideas and where the show was going to be advanced for the next day. And then each of us had a responsibility to go out and shoot certain stories. And some of us had, franchise stories and things like that. But the day was very, very much a routine and a schedule. And it really couldn't veer from that, especially now when I was younger and I didn't have kids, like I could go home if I wanted to and take a nap for a while or lounge or whatever. And I did do that probably more then. But once I had kids,
it's all over.
It was like the race was on, and put the other hat on and go and start your next job, which was mom, chauffeur, all of those things, wife and everything. And so I would get out of there. I would try to get to, a class at the gym right away. Mm-hmm. And then I would usually, my schedule would be free around 2:30 to then be at service for the kids the rest of the day. And then as the kids got older, I used to think, ew, this will be so much easier once the kids get into school. Uh-huh. Well, that was the biggest lie, because now that they're in school, it's way busier than I ever imagined. Yeah. It was not as bad when they were babies, because 1, they didn't know I was leaving.
Right.
And 2, they would just stay put. They didn't have anything to do or go. And so when I would get home, it was like we were home for the rest of the day. And so I did that schedule for, like I said, 14 years.
14 years. Wow.
And, but it was like, when you're doing it and you're doing something you love, like with anything, a routine, a habit, you get used to it. Right. I don't think you're ever fully used to getting up at 2:30 in the morning, but it just becomes like a routine. Like I would go to bed at 8, where some people can go to bed at 10, but they wake up at 5. Like, so my schedule just shifted.
Yeah.
But it definitely it's hard on your body after a while, because it's just not super natural to wake up at that time.
You're going to bed sometimes before it even gets dark, like in the summer, and then you're waking up before it's even light.
And I would trick my kids, like before they could tell time, I'd be like, oh, it's late, we got to get to bed, come in with mom, and it's like 4:45. I'm like, well, they can't tell time yet. Well, then they started being able to tell time, and that all went out the window. So oftentimes it's like, especially on the nights when my husband was on shift, this was our routine. We'd pile in the bed, the kids and I, and we would fall asleep together. I'd put a sleep timer on the TV, because I knew I would fall asleep before my son would actually fall asleep, but I wanted him to go to bed at a certain time.
Right.
But mama needed to get a little sleep.
Yeah. So
it was not ideal, but it worked for us. And
oh my goodness. Was your best friend during that 14 years, was his or her name Coffee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, talk to the audience a little bit about Taste of the Town. Some of your favorite restaurants, some of your memories, experiences, places that may still be open today that you really enjoyed.
Hands down, favorite segment I ever got to do, and it really became my segment, like that I would get to do. And so we would shoot, one day a week, and we would go and we would we really tried to find locally owned restaurants, because the big chain restaurants don't need our help. No. But mom and pop do, and those are the stories that are the most fun to tell.
Yeah.
And it was just so great, because, you would leave work and you had a long morning show, and it was work, but it never felt like work. I'm like, we're in a restaurant talking to somebody about their passion.
Getting food.
They're feeding us. Right. But and I would just light up in these segments, because just food makes people happy, right? It brings people together.
For sure.
It will always be a bonding thing for everybody. And sitting around a table with people and having a conversation. And oftentimes we would shoot the segment, and the segments, we could shoot them in an hour and 10 minutes. So we had extra time on the end. Yeah. And my photographer, whoever it was, and I would get to sit and talk to the owner and eat and just really get to know them even more.
Yeah.
It's so hard because there's so many restaurants that we did that I don't even think I could pick like a favorite. I think it was just, I loved seeing people light up and shine when they talked about something that
you were
they
there
were
to
so
support local business, and you were sincerely.
They would be so nervous, and I'm like, don't be nervous.
Yeah.
Like my job here is to make you always shine and look wonderful and great, and we're just here to highlight your business.
It's a conversation.
Like, we're not the health department walking in and like gonna check everything. I don't care
not
about
the liquor
that.
board.
Not the liquor board. I don't know about that. I
Yeah.
don't need to know about that. I just want to see. I want to see what you do on a daily basis.
Well,
here.
you probably saw it more than most people, where you put this and this and this in front of somebody, and they're like,
yeah, oh yeah.
Like,
and what we would have to do is just remember, like, this doesn't exist. There's no. It's just you and I having a conversation. And usually, once they started talking and realized that I'm not this like, here I am to do a segment with you. Like I don't even, half the time I was learning as I went too. You know, when I said I went to ASU, I didn't learn to be a journalist.
Right.
Like I learned on the job. And so I always was just me. And I'm like, I like people.
Yeah.
And this job is great for people, because if you like people and you like talking with them and learning about them and connecting with them, that's what we got to do. And so a segment like that just made people happy. And everybody seemed to love that segment. It would air on Fridays, and it was perfect because, you know, the weekend, you don't want to cook. You want to like find a new place to go check out.
For sure, yeah.
And we were able to show off some great spot in the Valley for people to, and the greatest thing with that segment were the owners would say, oh my gosh, our weekend was the best we've had. You know, people would see it, and it would drum people up, and they would come in. And so that's the icing on the cake.
Well, and it makes you feel good, because it's like,
good.
wow,
I was
able to help.
Yeah.
What's the inner circle secret of these restaurants being able to get on? Is it these PR firms that come and pitch? It's just you find them? So
we have lots of, a lot of them, pay to have PR representation, which is great. And sometimes we'll find them like that. But my favorite ways are either like I would just drive in my neighborhood and find a place, or a coworker would say, oh my gosh, and they put a menu on my desk. You have to check this place out. Do a segment there. So it was really, a lot of it was word of mouth.
Yeah.
People, and some of these owners, bless them, they were so brave and awesome, and they would send an email and say, I don't know if we're big enough to do a segment, but like we have this new spot and we're doing this. And just that alone, I'm like, I want to come support you, because you were brave enough to send an email. You don't have representation. You don't have somebody that's sending that out for you.
That's cool.
In PR, people are awesome, because they would always find us great places that believed in and loved. So it was a combination of all of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's definitely good. It gives hope to those that,
And I still, to this day, like, though I'm not there anymore, the station's goal is always to show off new, wonderful local businesses. And so I always encourage them, like, I still get, messages. I have this restaurant, I'm like, send the email, send it to this producer. And if they feel like it's a fit, they will call you. And I think you absolutely should promote yourself and market yourself.
Right.
No one else is going to do it for you.
News bulletin. The news is always looking for stuff.
Exactly.
It's just
help them out.
Yeah. No, for sure. So if everything is Money Peach certified, and you guys are okay with going out to dinner, do you like to stay within a 5-mile radius of where you live?
Yeah. Sometimes I definitely get caught up in my circle.
I think we all do at this stage.
And we, years ago when we started doing a budget, we cut out all eating out for a while, or it was very minimal. And because we had to have sacrifices to get to where we needed to be. And so now, even now, we don't eat out a ton. Mm-hmm. And with kids, it's just hard. It's harder, we don't enjoy it as much, just because, they're just trying to keep them together. But we usually do like to stay close. But every now and then, if now that the kids are both in school, we will find time and, for a date. Usually we like a date lunch just because it's easier. We don't need a babysitter because they're at school. Yep. And then we'll venture out. We love Central Phoenix. We love Central Phoenix.
Isn't it great what's going on down there?
I always say if I could afford to live in Central Phoenix, then I would be broke, because I would eat out every meal.
Every night,
I would get on my bike and I would just restaurant hop.
Yeah,
but it's great.
What are the ages of your kids?
6 and 8.
Okay,
and they're good out at a restaurant, but they just don't enjoy it as much. And want to spend the money to take them if they don't enjoy it. Yeah.
So wait till they're 15 and 17 and they're no longer on the kid menu,
Oh.
and one of the two likes to eat sea bass at $36 a plate. You're just like,
Oh, there's my eating out budget in one meal.
in one meal.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all done.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into what you're doing now. Obviously, you had a long, awesome, successful career at the news. You left September, what was it, 26th?
September 26th. Yeah. So like 7 months ago.
Yeah, 7 months ago.
It was-
And so now, I know you have a YouTube channel. You're doing Money, Sex, and Kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So the YouTube channel kind of started right after I left. Let me get back up a little bit.
Yeah.
So the decision to leave was not like an easy decision. It wasn't like a quick, okay, yeah, I'm leaving my career, leaving my job. That was probably 2 years in the making. My contract was up, but about a year before that I really had to start thinking, and I first and foremost felt like I was missing out on so much with my kids.
Yeah.
When you're not there in the morning and you're not there to start their day and you give that responsibility to somebody else, like eventually you just feel like you're not enough, and I wanted to be enough for them. And what was happening is I would serve everybody else, and then by the end of the day when they needed me the most, I had just such a depleted version of me to give them. And so it wore on me heavily. And so there was a long process of, and I look back and I think like our debt-free journey probably always supposed to happen for a reason, because to make a decision to leave a career, finances have to be in check. Like
sure.
You can't just say, I'm going to leave my job and figure it out. Like that's just not how I work.
Right.
Like I have deep faith, but deep faith also comes with being responsible too. And like, not just like, okay, I have a family of 4 here to support and half of our income now just went away.
Yeah.
So I look back and I thought, okay, all of that happened for us to be presented with the idea of making this decision. And making a big decision like that becomes a little easier when that part of life is not a struggle
Right.
or stress. So, I mean, it was a lot of prayer, and it was a lot of like lists, pros and cons, what I'm giving up to leave and what I'm gaining.
Yeah.
And the gaining list kept trumping what I was losing.
Yeah.
And I was just too at a point where I just wanted to be there. I wanted a flexible schedule, and I wanted to be able to show up first for them, and then anyone else I could have time for, but first for them. So that all came into
I can see the emotion just in your eyes when you talk about it.
I just knew, like, there's just, for once in my life at that time, my head and my heart aligned.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen much in life.
No.
But that was a decision I just felt it was needed. And once I made it, I was still scared. I remember getting tons of emails. Well, aren't you scared? Well, yeah, I'm human. Of course I'm scared. But I'm less scared because I know that on the other side of the fear is this like crazy amount of confidence and courage that I just don't know I have yet, but I'm going to find it.
Right.
And so Money, Sex, and Kids, when I left, I didn't have an open door to walk in. So I think that's too, a lot of people leave something and they're like, oh, there's something bigger and better. There wasn't, but I was okay with that.
You had to build your own house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I knew that I started looking at closed doors, and I was like, okay, well, right now, like everything's closing, and it means that there's no more room for me here. So I'm going to walk forward and something else will happen. And if not, I'm just going to learn to be really good with where I am right now and serving my children first and my family first. So, but the Money, Sex, and Kids thing came out of probably my husband worried that I was going to go into this deep depression and slump of like not being fulfilled or not having something.
Yeah.
So many times, I mean, with his business, everything revolves around questions about how we, do our life and budgeting and money. Money is such a big thing. Well, money, sex, and kids are probably 3 of the most common things that we all have something in common with. And it touches everything in our life. So we just started being super honest and real and authentic in these conversations. And a lot of the topics came from what people were asking us.
Yeah.
And we just turned it into something like that. And right now I will say that it's taken a little bit of a back seat because everything else we're doing is really taking up our time.
Yeah.
And but it's been good. It's been good.
So you have the You Do You journal, which is awesome. And by the way, for the record, everybody that's here, everybody that's watching. Where did that go? Oh, here it is. I did buy 4 copies of it for my office here.
Gosh.
And for whatever reason, they didn't get delivered yesterday, but they're coming today. So anyways,
wonderful.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that one for my wife.
I was going to say I brought one for Kim, but you could just tell me next time, and I would.
No. I like to support awesome people. So tell us about the journal and how that came about.
Okay, so the journal is like I think some people are like, oh, she just came out with a journal, but there's such a deeper story behind it. Again, about 2 years ago, when there was some really heavy things I was dealing with personally, I think a lot of times you look at a person and on the outside you're like, oh, they got it all together. They got a job, they got kids, they got everything. She's superwoman. But I was at a point where like the outside looked shiny and bright, and the inside was dark and gloomy, and just a lot of messy things in my head. So I took the step to start seeing a therapist, because I just didn't like the way I didn't like anything. I didn't like that feeling. At the time, my husband, who is, again, way better of a person, way better of a human, he had started this morning routine, and he's like just a way more of a go-getter. But I didn't know he was doing this morning routine because I was at work, every morning. And so he had started this like meditation and journaling and just a really nice intentional way to start the day. Well, I was off one day and he woke up before me, and I come downstairs, and I'm not kidding. I tell this story all the time. He's sitting in a awful bathrobe that only a wife could love him in. And I'm like, he's got headphones on. What in the hell is he doing? So I asked him, and he was like, oh, and he's always really even keeled, but he just even seemed more sort of at peace and just like even all the time. Yeah. And he had been doing a pretty nice morning routine consistently. Yeah. And so I asked him about it, and of course I was like, oh, I don't have time for that. And he's like, threw this at my face. He's like, oh, you don't have time? He's like, you have 24 hours in the day, just like Oprah does. I was like, you just threw Oprah in my face?
That's great.
And so literally the next day, now I had been gifted a gratitude journal from a dear friend of mine, and it literally sat on my nightstand because I just was like, I don't have time for this. Right. And so the next day, partly because I didn't want my husband to keep growing without me, I thought, okay, I'm willing to try this, and I'm going to try to be consistent, but I'm not going to be perfect because chasing perfection left me depleted and exhausted, and it's just not going to work. So I started it, and what I did was slowly but surely started to establish this morning routine of gratitude. And that, along with working with a therapist, my mindset really started to change. Now, it was not overnight. I'm just speeding up the story. It took time. Right. But what happened is I stopped reaching for my phone first thing. I stopped looking at social media first thing. I stopped opening up an email first thing. And I went right to that. Before my brain could even start negative Nancy playing the stories in my head, before I started comparing, before I started down the doom and gloom black hole of whatever. Right. And it started to change me. I started to be able to deal a little bit better with the feelings that I was feeling. So the gratitude thing and the journaling thing was a big part of my life, and it probably helped to get me to the point of making a decision to also leave my job, the 2 years that I practiced this. So when I left, Chris and I, again, he's always pulling out things out of me to just keep me moving forward, because he knows that I can get easily stuck, and then I get negative, and then I think, oh, what was I doing? Why did I make the decision to leave all that?
You're human.
So exactly. Yeah. And he pulls me out of that. And he said, he started talking about he's like, the journal practice is such a part of you. Why not create your own? And I said, well, that's not a bad idea, because the one that I was using, it had an evening portion, and I never did the evening. So of course I'd go to bed thinking, well, I failed. I messed up. Didn't finish that. Gotcha. So I literally sat in the office. I would take the kids in the morning, and I would sit in the office, and I came up with all the guts of the inside of the book. It's a prompted guided journal, and it was questions that I knew I needed to ask myself every morning. And then I picked out like 90 of my favorite inspirational, motivational sort of pieces of
Yeah.
oomph, and I put that in there. It's not dated. It's an open-dated book because,
Yeah, I saw
again,
that.
my head goes to, if I didn't do it perfectly, I didn't do it right, which I'm trying to get away from, but that's a consistent practice to beat that struggle. And so then I made the book, and I made a few to give to close friends, had them use it for a while, and they were great friends to do that. And then we just we launched it in January.
Yeah.
And right now we are we moved away. We were doing a kind of a print on demand thing, and we moved away from that. We have a local printer we work with.
Great.
He prints a big shipment of them for us, or a big bulk inventory of them. We house them at home. I fill the orders every morning. My kids help.
That's great.
And
entrepreneurship.
They're learning, and they're earning their keep early. But along with the journal, my idea was, I know that I'm not alone in the way I think, the way I struggle, the way I don't feel like I am enough some days. I know that if I say it out loud, it will give other women permission to say, yeah, I feel that way too.
Right.
And I think we get so lost in doing everything for everyone, we forget the things that we need to fill ourselves up.
Yeah.
And so I, along with it, was really adamant about trying to create a community of people. And so with it, we have a private community on Facebook, which has grown to hundreds and hundreds of women, and we meet once a month, the ones that can.
Yeah.
We have a meetup, and we find a local coffee shop that's crazy enough to let us come and take over. And we get like 60 to 80 women that show up.
I've seen some of that on social media. It's amazing.
And it's connection. It's real conversation. We're just, so many of us are tired of living one way and struggling and being in that negative space, and we want connection. But when you're a middle-aged woman, it's hard to find that.
Right.
It's hard to find real friends and real friendship, and it's hard to ask for help. It's hard to share your heart without feeling judged. I mean, we all have the same feelings, and we're all so much more alike than we are different.
And you being in the public eye for so long, and I followed you on social media, and we've been personal friends on Facebook and this and that, and to see some of the, just, I don't like to get into negativity, but we'll call it what it is.
Yeah.
See some of the negativity and the hurtful things that some people would just say to you that don't even know you.
Yeah.
And the one thing I would notice about you is you, no matter what, no matter how hard it hurt, and I knew it had to hurt, it would hurt me just reading it, based on you. You were just always very zen. You were like the Gandhi of responding, like, oh, thank you so much. But and it's actually a good practice, not just for women in essence, but even men, like running their business, when you get a negative email or you get something, not just to fly off the cuff, and just to kind of realize that maybe that person that's created that negative statement towards me is having issues.
And it always, what I have to remind myself is, it always says so much more about the space they're in than it does about you. And it's learning to give that grace to people that you just, I'm human. I don't want to give it to them because I don't want to like them because of what they said about me. But part of me has to realize that I know when I don't love myself, or when I feel negative about myself, it is projected on everyone. So it's natural, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just know where they are in their headspace, and I can't help them, but it's not going to help me or help them if I come back at them and attack them.
Correct.
So I acknowledge it, which some people are like, you shouldn't even acknowledge that stuff. And I'm like, no, because somebody took their time to come at me with something negative. I just want them to know that there's a person, me, that reads it. It's not a robot. It's not attached to it. And I don't say anything but kindness. And I'm telling you, it's a practice, because there's many days when I'm like, I want to say all the things. And I'm like, no, it's not going to make the situation better. And I'm going to feel worse after that.
Yeah.
So it's just been a consistent practice. But what I found is, I know when I'm in the dumpy part of life and I don't feel good about myself.
Right.
You bleed that onto everyone. But then when you set your day and you start it with gratitude and intention and self-love, you project that on everybody. Well, I think... I'm like, if everybody takes a little personal responsibility, has some self-awareness, and works on themselves, like, that's naive to think, but I'm like, I think that could change a lot of people.
It would be a happier world.
It would be a much happier world.
And I'm really sure, being on the news, all the shit that you would see that would just put you in a downer, because it's just like car wreck here, murder here, this and that. It's like, holy crap. So, to kind of step away from that or step away all the way and then be more in a Zen place and create something where people can be happy. And business owners that are listening, like, it starts with you. The minute, and I have to realize this every time I walk into my office, if I'm in a really bad space, all of a sudden everybody's looking at me and they're like, oh boy, what's going on with him today? And it
totally is.
Yeah.
And the energy you put out is the energy they're going to take on.
For sure.
And so I know I'm responsible for that. And I can't say that I walk around in this like butterfly and roses mentality every day, because there are plenty of days where I'm human and life just, I can't get out of that headspace sometimes. But I know now tools to center back to hopefully get back to that. I'm not saying you're not allowed to have a bad day.
No.
It's okay. It's okay to not be okay some days. It really is.
Right.
But we can't use it as an excuse. I'm just the way I am because of this, or I had this happen to me so many years ago and that's why I am like that. Like, okay, we have all had some sort of bad something happen to us along the way. I'm not taking that away from anybody, but I'm also telling you, you have full control and power over how you then work
for sure. My mantra, if I'm going to do business with you at this point in my life, is don't be a dick.
It's so right? Be a nice human.
Be a nice human.
Like, let's
exactly.
Just try,
So, anything besides the journal? Anything in the future going on as far as?
We're just the journal community. We're just growing, and
awesome.
We have plans to roll out some new journals that are a little bit different and more specific to certain people's needs that we've kind of taken on and realized that other people want and need. So that is something bigger picture we're working towards. A dear friend of mine who just aligns so well with me, she and I just put on our very first sort of women's event in April. And so we have plans to hold those and host them twice a year.
Great.
It was like 100+ women.
Yeah.
We came together for a half a day of, it was called All the Real Things. So again, back to we all want real.
Yeah.
And in a world of filtered perfection, and I say that with air quotes, I think when people just feel like they don't have to be perfect and they can show like a messy side of them, but still know that there's people that like love that and want that.
Yeah.
And so these women came and they were scared to death because they did something they'd never done before. They showed up. I mean, really, like, if you think about it, there's a girl on the internet telling you to come to a house for a day event with other women. Like, that sounds scary.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, like, I get it. And I just wanted them to have this overzealous experience, just full of women and connection. And so Amanda and I, she's in the sort of lifestyle coach nutrition space, and she has a wonderful community that she has, and we brought our communities together, and it just was awesome. Women left with new friendships. They left with something to take home, like tangible things to work on.
Yeah.
And so we're excited to do another one. We'll do another one in November.
Okay. Great. We'll keep track of that and definitely promote that and everything. A few other things I want to get into before we wrap up, because knowing you, I know you like to run.
I do.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your, your love for running, and like, what's one of your favorite races that you do? Do you do the Tillman, or do you?
So, here I am talking to the runner. I don't know if I'm like a legit runner, but I'm like, okay, I put running shoes on and I go run miles. I'm calling myself a runner.
You do the Ragnar and you have blisters.
I did do Ragnar. This is crazy, but I was not an athlete growing up.
Yeah.
I was a cheerleader and I danced and everything. And I'm not saying that that's not athletic, but I was never in sports as far as, softball, soccer.
Yeah.
Just never was. I hated to sweat growing up. Like, I have a fond memory of 4th grade turkey trot, running with my head down because I didn't want to mess up my bangs and I definitely didn't want to sweat.
Yeah.
So it's weird because here I am. I mean, again, life's a journey, right? And like, just because you were one way doesn't mean you have to still be that way. And one of our very first dates, Chris and I, we went and hiked a mountain. Okay, a mountain is not a hike. It is a hump.
Right.
And I was dying. So I did not really start working out until probably right after I got married, which is like 11 years ago. But I didn't really start running until, like, legit running until maybe 4 years ago. And I did it, I thought, I'm still a lover of CrossFit. I've been
Yeah.
CrossFitting for like 7 years. And I mean, my CrossFit journey has changed too along the way. But I remember I was like feeling like I was really strong, in good shape. And I was like, I want to try a race. So I signed up for a 5K, no, a 10K first.
Okay.
So it was the Phoenix Marathon 10K.
Oh, yeah.
That was my
I
very
love that
first
race.
signed up race I ever did.
Yeah. Art Mullen.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I went and did, right after that, I was like, well, I'm running miles. I should keep this up. And there is a half marathon. It was like at Rio Vista Park. It was around Easter and it was really warm. But I did it. And I only really used CrossFit as my training.
Yeah.
And so I just started this like, running's like a drug.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's just, and the fact that you're able to, I think what I've celebrated, I was earlier on in my sort of fitness running career, I was really dead set on aesthetics and I chased a goal that was never attainable. Like I'd get to a goal, I'm like, oh, not lean enough, not this enough. And so, so what has happened, which is a good thing, I've really regressed back a little bit. And now I'm just like, I just run to run. And I sign up for races. And the last half marathon I did in, I don't know when it was, January, it was not my fastest, but it was like my best because my headspace was the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
And I didn't look at a picture of me after the race and say, oh, you should have done it faster. You could have been leaner. Oh, your legs look big. I didn't pick myself apart.
That's great.
And so now it's just like, I just run to run and it's fun in the morning to get up when the weather's nice. And
so nice.
And I love running like a race with people, but I really love running alone too.
So do I.
I just love to be alone. I don't have to like keep up with someone. I put my earbuds in.
It's like a
and just go.
meditation, right?
It is.
And you think so much when you run.
Your creative brain
Yeah.
is in. I always tell people, if you want to be creative and you want to think of great ideas, go run.
For a run.
Because all of a sudden you're flooded with them, and it's a matter of getting home really quick and writing it all down.
Yeah.
But I love the
cool.
hot chocolate race. That's one of our favorites to do. It's like
Okay.
a 15K.
Yeah.
It's just a nice mileage, 9
Right.
miles. It's not crazy. I always say, like right now I have no desire to do a full marathon. I've done halves,
Yeah.
and I feel good with a half. Like I recover
Halves
fine.
are great. They're perfect.
The next day I feel good. The day I do it, I feel good. And
The San Diego half's great. The rock and roll out here is
yes,
great.
rock and roll I did a couple of times, and it was awesome.
That's
so
cool.
yeah,
Yay.
right now I'm just gonna celebrate that I have a body that lets me run.
Well, I'm gonna bug you to get you on the trails for next season.
I know that
Yeah.
is one thing I
I think you'll just. I think you'll love it, and there's no snakes during that time of the year. So
okay.
you'll be good.
Okay.
Okay, so just a couple more quick fire questions
Yeah.
for you before we have to go our separate ways. Your morning ritual now. What is it?
Okay, so I wake up at a more decent time, 5:00.
Yes.
With the exception if I have to get to the gym earlier, then I'll get up at 4:30. But 5 a.m. is my wake up time. I wake up first, don't check the phone. Coffee, I get my journal. I journal. I usually do some sort of devotional.
Cool.
I have to admit, even with Chris meditating, I have not gotten into the meditation space yet. I haven't. Baby steps for me,
Yeah.
but the routine that I've developed is nice. So I like to have 45 minutes to an hour alone.
Good.
And there's something nice about drinking coffee alone. I just don't know
Right.
what it is, and no one talking to you. And then the kids now,
Yeah.
my responsibility is to get them up and fed and all of that. But it gives me at least a good start to the day to get and then sometimes if that 45 minutes to an hour yields time, then I'll start in on emails and things like that. But I usually wait to do any of that until the kids are off to school, and then I feel like I've shown up well for them, and now I can concentrate for several hours while they're at school on business and all of those kinds of things. But
That sounds like a great morning.
it's a beautiful morning routine. It's quiet. I hate to say it, but I don't turn the TV on in the morning.
Right.
It's such a distraction for all of us. And
guess
so
that's a good
sometimes I
point.
feel a little lost.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do at the end of the day need to turn it on to like regroup and make sure I'm like living in the world and know what's going on a little
Right.
bit. But it just hasn't become a part of our morning routine as much anymore. I didn't realize how demanding kids are in the morning.
Yeah.
And this is a shock to us all. So we're really learning this routine together again because we've never had the time together.
You've really just gone off and started a new life for yourself.
Yeah.
And even though the past is not anything bad, negative,
No.
or indifferent, it's just not.
It's
part
just
of what you do
different.
anymore.
It's just
Yeah.
different. That's all it is.
Do you ever go back to the station? Or?
I have not been back. I mean, I still keep in touch
Yeah.
with, some of my friends there and everything.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
Yeah.
So if you don't necessarily want to get into the meditating now, I will make a suggestion. Gardening is awesome.
Really?
I love gardening. So I have a garden DELO segment, which is horrible. It's like Facebook Live with me gardening. But if you like to garden,
Now I'm
drink
going
your
to go
coffee,
binge watch on your Facebook
water
Lives.
plants, it's like meditation.
Okay,
It's
okay.
great. Okay. So what is or was or will be, let's just say, your favorite concert coming up, or one that you've seen?
Oh,
What's your?
goodness. That is good.
Are you a country girl?
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did go to Country Thunder once, which is so not me. I love country music.
How much dirt did you have in your nose?
Oh, well, I hate camping. So
Yeah.
why did I go?
Horrible.
It was, I mean, I will say, camping aside, because I hate camping. I'm sorry to all the campers out there. If that's you, you do you, sis, boyfriend, all of you. But it was like amazing to have the best of the best all in one. The bad thing is I don't go to it. I did go to Paul McCartney once, and that probably hangs
Very
right
cool.
at the top of the list.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Paul McCartney. I'm going to
Okay.
go with that.
Well, I think I know the answer to this. Coffee or wine?
Oh, coffee for sure.
Yeah.
But I do love a nice glass of wine too.
Okay.
I love something crisp on a summer day, and when it's cold, I love something, a heavy Cabernet or something like that.
All right. And then, can you drive 55 or you can't drive 55?
Well, who are you? If you're asking my husband, I'm the worst driver ever. If you're asking me, I think I'm fantastic at it.
Uh-huh.
I might drive a little fast.
Okay.
And I might curb check every day, and I might run into things often. I'm not a great driver.
Excellent.
That's why we drive old cars.
Right, yeah.
But I always fess up to it because I'm like, he's going to find out. So I always take a picture of what I did,
Yep.
and I'm just like, sorry. It's okay, right?
And
like,
you can park in the very front of anywhere. You don't have to
Yeah.
park all the way back.
Yeah,
You have
exactly.
this, expensive
Yeah.
Mercedes.
No, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's great.
So, yeah, I'm probably not the best driver,
Very well.
but I'm owning it.
Yeah, there's somebody in my family. But anyways, we won't get into that. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. And before we leave, where can everybody, find you? And I'll put it in show notes and all that. But what's the best way to?
So AndreaRobinsonTV.com is where you can find everything as far as the journal is concerned. And then, of course, on social media, it's just Andrea Robinson TV on Instagram and on Facebook. And yeah, I'm there. And
Beautiful. Everybody, go find her, follow her, go buy her journal, and some really amazing stuff that she's doing. She's an amazing person, and we're really blessed to have her here today. So, thank you.
thank you.
Peace out.
Appreciate you.